Next joining us is Simon Mann, standing for Ramsey. And like a few people, it came out very late. I mean, you were literally right to the wire, I think.
Yes, I was about 2 hours before the close of nominations, but that actually was a planned thing. I had to stand down from the 2 previous legal positions that I held to be able to give the full time to the town and representing them.
Well, I'm guessing we're going to talk about the marina for a fair bit of this. I mean, I don't want to overdo it, but I mean, It's a massive subject, isn't it?
Well, I was in on the marina, although I was sitting quietly behind the scenes. I was in on the objections to the marina back in 2019. When I wrote to the Chief Minister, I had some concerns as to how effectively it had actually started within government.
Right.
And I got a reply back effectively saying that they would eventually go through the proper procedures. You know, it needed to be properly advertised, and subsequently government did. And I think we can safely say that since then, the project has fairly nearly ground to a halt. Now, of course, it's raised its ugly head again with the suggestions it was going to become an election issue. It very firmly is an election issue, and I'm looking for a substantial mandate now from the people of Ramsey to deliver finality to that question.
I mean, there's other people doing the same thing, is there?
Yes, I know, but what's happened is this has hung over the town for a long period of time, and people within the scope of the scheme living there are suffering the equivalent of planning blight. If you can imagine the suggestion that all this is going to suddenly be developed in front of your seafront house, you're really looking at a position that property values have probably been considerably reduced. Some people might actually be struggling to sell who might be wanting to move at the moment. And, you know, the formal planning process hasn't even started. So some finality has to be given to those people now. And I think in the end it's going to take the mandate from the people of Ramsey to as a majority of people are against it, to actually say no.
And that's it. I mean, is that your definite feeling on the doorstep?
I intend to deliver that message on election night. I think there's enough people in Ramsey behind me on this.
Would that make you a protest vote, though, do you think? Or?
No, not necessarily. I think, you see, at the end of the day, people want investment in Ramsey. But that scheme, it just... to my mind, it had crazy written all over it at the start, and it needed a lot more close examination by government. I think that government is happy to open its doors to investors, and as a result there's always a danger that an over-exuberant scheme will suddenly be produced that actually is harmful to the town or the area in which it's proposed, and this is just one of those schemes. Okay,
well, that's a fair chunk on that one, so that's the main thing. But otherwise, can you elaborate on things you want to do?
And of course, you last met me at Tynwald when I presented my petition over the health service. That wasn't the first petition. I presented one back in 2019. And my main concern at that stage was that the scope of the Michaels report, in fact, had been too narrow. And you know, that if you look now that we've got Manx care in place, but if you look at the north of the island, we've got one ageing GP practice. Now they're trying their best, but in the best will in the world, the population's increased, and I don't think they can actually cope now. So what I proposed is that we go for a new medical centre. Ramsey Cottage Hospital actually needs to be completely redeveloped. We need a secondary facility to Nobles Hospital. The recent COVID-19 has actually demonstrated that the medical facilities in the north of the island are hopelessly inadequate. Now, if we had a modern secondary hospital, if there was one localised incident that for some reason disabled part of Nobles Hospital, say there was a fire there or something, we would immediately have a sustainable fallback position. And in fact, Ramsey Cottage Hospital has recently been used to a small extent like that. They've had a lot of the blood clinic patients have come down. There's been some of the outpatient things have been shifted there, but it could be a marvellous facility.
Sounds expensive.
Well, I have some ideas as to how it's going to be financed, and that is that I'm firmly against the gambling industry.
The whole e-gaming.
Yes,
side.
it wrecks lives.
Okay.
And it wrecks families.
But it brings in money.
And it brings a lot of money in.
So you have that.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if we continue to entertain it on these shores, while it stays, it should pay. Now, what I would do is invite the gambling industry to simply write the cheque.
For the medical centre?
For our new medical centre and hospital, on a voluntary basis. Now, if they're not prepared to do that, then I think we have to look at the fact that part of the mental health issues, only part of them, because some of them down to drink and drugs and so on, but part of the mental health issues that are cropping up in society come from that particular industry.
Obviously,
it's not the only
they can go anywhere. They can go anywhere. That's the trouble, can't they?
But they're here, and they are contributing. But it's money. As far as I'm concerned, the Isle of Man shouldn't have invited that particular industry to these shores, but they have, and they're here.
Yeah.
And I think reasonably that they're making massive profits every week. And I think reasonably, the people of the Isle of Man should see some tangible benefit from that.
So if we didn't have them, have you got ideas of what other industries could we attract here?
Let's look at how Ramsey Cottage Hospital was first built. It was built by the Henry Bloom Noble Trust. And that came from a 4-year-old boy who died on the way to Noble's Hospital, suffering from appendicitis back at the turn of the century. So one wealthy individual, as we know, provided not only Noble's Hospital, but Ramsey Cottage Hospital. And if you look around the island now, we have billionaires living here. We actually have people of similar financial standing to him.
Some might say though, they're here because they're not paying that much tax, right?
There we are then. So what I would say is, take an example from Henry Bloom Noble. I'm not so sure that all those wealthy individuals are nasty individuals, tight individuals and so on. And I think approached the right way, one of them might even write the cheque. Okay. So I would hold my hands out to them and
ideas.
Say, we need this in Ramsey. Yeah. Please come and help us.
Okay, time-wise, and moving on. Where would you most likely fit in government? Where's your skill set?
Well, I make no secret of the fact that I would like to be a health minister.
Wow.
Because
that's the big one.
I've already engaged with Manx Care. I've had a meeting with the chairman and CEO. I attended their recent public meeting and asked questions.
Yeah. Do things differently? Shake it up.
They're all good. Actually, they're all good people, but they haven't been given the money to do the job. Their mandate for this year is to save money, and worse still, the department hasn't transferred the property assets to them. So I commented to them at the public meeting, there wasn't a single thing that they could do at the moment to improve the GP situation in the north of the island. If they wanted to build a new medical centre at the moment, they haven't got the money, and they haven't actually got the ability to do that. And this is the new entity that our government has put in place to improve our health care.
You see yourself very much working inside government? Or
yes.
Not backbenching?
No,
you want a position?
Very much. I'm looking at this. I'm 64 years of age. I'm looking at this that 5 years ahead, I've got some ideas and I want to put those ideas into practice. And the only way you're going to do it is to be at the driving seat. You
may not get the ministerial shit though. Would you work with other
yes,
people?
Yes, I'm happy to. I've worked with many people. My history. I spent 22 years in the Isle of Man Police before I qualified as a lawyer. I'm qualified lawyer in 2 jurisdictions now. When you've had 40 years plus of that kind of experience, you deal with people on all levels of society. And I can safely say there won't be anybody in government I won't be able to work with.
And you've already made it clear this would be a full-time position for you.
Full-time position. When I was last employed as the Island's Deputy Legal Aid Certifying Officer, I used to be at my desk at 8 o'clock in the morning and quite frequently still at 8 o'clock at night, clearing the backlog of work that had been left for me.
And finally, your thoughts on who should be the next Chief Minister?
Well, I would say at the moment it's between a close run thing between Juan Watterson and Alfred Cannon.
Right, yeah. And you have a favourite on those two?
Well, I know Alfred Cannon well. And I know Juan Watterson well, and both have actually responded well to me when I've asked them questions and so on. they come across as decent people. So I wouldn't favour either of them. Whoever gets the support of Turnbull would get my support.